Alright, in this video we'll see how to solve this problem where we need to calculate some probabilities using Z table in Microsoft Excel. Alright, suppose we have a stock and we know that its mean return or the average return annually was 14% and the standard deviation of its returns is 33% or 0.33. Now, using this information and a Z table, we need to calculate what is the probability that in a year we'll get an annual return that is less than 8%. Now, to calculate all these probabilities, we'll be using the Z table. If you don't know the basic concepts behind how to calculate probabilities from Z table, then I would highly recommend you to go through some links that I'll put in the description box below. That has some videos that are really great videos explaining all these basic concepts. But if you're already comfortable with Z table, then just follow along. Now for the first problem, our expected return is 8% or less. And we need to calculate a z-score for this return. Now the formula for z-score is this, where we need to divide the difference between the expected return and mean by the standard deviation. But in Excel we'll simply use this built-in formula that will calculate a z-score for this return and this mean and standard deviation. Now to do that, press equal sign and start typing and select this formula. And then first put the expected return, which is 8%, then put the mean, and finally the standard deviation, which is this cell. Then close the brackets and press enter. So the z-score is negative 0.18. It should be somewhere around here in the z distribution. Now to calculate the probability for the z-score, we'll use this formula. So type norm dot dist dot s dot dist. Yeah. So select this function, and this function only takes two parameters. First one is a z value, or z value is this cell, and the second one you put true if you want to work with a cumulative distribution, or false if you want to use a probability density function. I have no idea what is this, but I know what is this, which is cumulative distribution function. So we'll just simply use this one, close the brackets and press enter. Great. So the probability of getting a return less than 8% is 43%. Now what should be the probability of getting more than 8%? It's pretty simple actually. You just deduct 43% from 1, because 1 is the total probability, and we know that the probability of getting less than 8% is 43%. So getting more than 8% should be 1 minus 0.43. But let's just use the formulas instead of doing this manually. So clear all this. Z-score, again calculate the Z-score. It should be the same because all the inputs are same. Alright. Again the Z-score is negative 0.18. Now this time we'll deduct the probability for that z-score from 1. Alright, the probability is 57%. Then let's move on to what is the probability of getting more than 30% return. First thing is to calculate the z-score again. So let's do it. This is the return. Again the mean is this cell and standard deviation is this cell. Close the brackets, press enter. So the z-score now is 0.48. It should be somewhere around here. Now if we use this function with this z-score, what it will give us is a probability that getting a return less than 30%. So for example, if we do this, norm test this z-score and true, so this 69% is the probability that we'll get a return less than 30%, not greater than 30%. but we need to calculate what is the probability of getting more than 30%. So to do that, we'll simply deduct this probability from 1 and press enter. So it is 30%. Alright, finally we need to calculate this probability of getting a return between 8 and 30%. Now before we do that, let's bring out the Z distribution to have a better understanding of what we are trying to do here. We know that for 8% return we had a Z-score of negative 0.18, right? So the area to the left of this Z-score represents the probability of getting a return that is less than 8%. And for 30% return we had a Z-score of 0.48. Yes, so the area to the left of this represents the probability of getting return that is less than 30%. Now to calculate the probability of getting return between 8 and 30%, we need to find out the probability that this area represents. And to get that, what we'll do, we'll deduct the probability that this area represents from the probability that a 0.48 Z-score or this area represents. Alright, so for our final problem, we have two Z-score. First one is this and the second one is 0.48. Now to calculate the probability, first put the probability of getting less than 30% return, that is norm.s.dist. the Z-score is 0.48. yes, it is cumulative. Then deduct the probability of getting less than 8% return. So this time this is the Z-score and it's cumulative, so true here. Close the brackets and press enter. So we have a 26% chance that we'll get a return between 8 and 30%. Alright, that is all for this video. Hope to see you in the next one.